Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to this month's episode of the Empty Quiver, brought to you by Blackwidow Bows. Empty Quiver, that means Aaron Snyder, and we got a special guest this month, Cody Greenwood. Cody, y'all might know from the Tradlab, an ultimate numbers guy. So much the opposite of me. I love talking to the guy. It's awesome. Aaron and Cody were hunting down in Texas with Top of Texas Outfitters recently, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. And Cody kind of struggled. They were doing spot and stock mule deer, and it was something new for Cody, and of all things, he struggled with his shooting. And if you know anything about Cody, that's kind of his thing. He's like really into the mechanics of shooting and the equipment. So this is a really good discussion on how, he's marrying that up with this hunt down in Texas, spot and stock mule deer. So it's really an uncomfortable discussion for him. So, I mean, we all owe him a bit of thanks to, have this discussion. I mean, it's not easy. Everybody listens and critiques. I know everybody sitting in your truck or wherever you're listening, your armchair quarterback, it's just natural. It's human nature. Every episode, I'm sure y'all sitting there with your own opinions. But y'all try to come on here and talk about your shortcomings. That takes some balls. So I think there's something to be had, some benefit in this episode, and there is for me. It's applicable to my last month of hunting. So my hat's off to Cody. Appreciate him coming on, and of course Aaron. It's always awesome having him on. Great discussion. So with that being said, it is coming on the holiday seasons. I just wanted to put a plug in for the small businesses. 2020 can get on down the road. I'm pretty sure we're all sick of it, but been kind of tough on some small businesses. So, of course, we have the sponsors of the show, and I encourage you to shop with those folks. But at the same time, there's great mom and pop shops all around the country and the world. Don't want to forget about Australia over there in Pathfinders. But look to those small companies, small businesses during the holiday season, and help them out, especially the ones that help us out. So without any further ado, I want to say thanks to the sponsors, Selway Archery, The Footed Shaft, Kifaru International, Ironwill Outfitters, and, of course, Blackwidow Bows. They all make this possible. That's all I got. Enjoy the show. Roger out. Well, hey, guys, you guys had a pretty good trip down in Texas. How many animals did you guys end up stalking? What were you there, 4 days, Cody?
I think it was a 4-day hunt. I think I hunted 3 days, and we got it done before the 4th. There were, that I wrote down, I was just going through this before the call, I think there were 14 stalks, if you want to call them that, and 12 were me walking behind Aaron, trying not to poke him in the hamstring with a broadhead. And then 2 were me dragging myself across gravel, and those were the stalk attempts. I ended up making a kill out of a tree stand.
Nice.
It was my first exposure to mule deer hunting.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, yeah, and stalking for that matter. Really, I mean, other than the out-I'd stalk at the beginning of the year. So it was good education.
What's that, Aaron?
You never got my joke? I said I would have never guessed. I was being a smart ass for giving
And so it begins.
He gave me a little. I had a continuous feedback drip coming from Aaron on the stock, so I deserve it. It's fine.
I'm sure it's all in a positive light. I mean,
he's like,
very
your
gentle.
Calves are rubbing together. I said, it's not my calves.
I'm sure he was gently encouraging you.
Yeah. It was fun. It was definitely educational. I learned a lot. I learned that there's no way I'm spending money to go to a high country mule deer hunt. The probability of success would be very, very, very low if you stack everything up.
All right, time out.
Eye-opening.
Time out. So the probability of success. Then I got to ask you, what are you after? Are you after just killing something? Are you after an adventure?
No, and it's different for everybody. For me, it'd be an animal on the ground, an adventure ending with an animal on the ground. But like sunrises and sunsets are nice, but I don't need to spend a bunch of money and drive 28 hours round trip to go see that. I can do that in my backyard.
Aaron,
So what would you say, Cody? What would you say your chances of success as a guest off of what you and I talked about on we'll bracket it down, high country Colorado, Eastern Plains Colorado, and Alberta. What would you say your percentage of shooting a deer, a decent deer, and a giant deer are as a guess?
As a guess, I would say if it was Colorado, are you talking high country Colorado? 0%. If you were talking about where I could get to where the deer were, let's say within 500 yards, maybe 5%, 10%, maybe.
God dang, Cody, I didn't even give you that bad a percentage, and I'm a dick. I think you could do a little better than that.
I don't know, because you have to stack it up. You have to stack up. You have to view things in terms of stack up, right? You have to find them through the glasses first. Helen Keller deserves my Zeiss binoculars more than I do. You've got to get to them. That's the second piece. And then once you're within 65 yards is pretty easy, but outside of that, it's pretty tough. You said, when I asked you, because I was keeping track out there, because out there we were stalking wasn't within the normal distribution of what you do. You said success was approximately 60%, right?
On good stocks. Yep.
On a good stock, right? Well, out there, your stock, your success rate where we were at with Scotty was 100%. I didn't take the shots, but we were within range, and I should have taken shots had I been prepared on 100% of the walkouts we did on my two. It's easy. I'm not good at mental math, but it's easy. We can convert it to decimals or fractions. It was 0%.
God, you make me laugh.
But
no.
So it was a learning. But if I went back to Scotty's, I'd give myself a really high. Matter of fact, I'm going back to Scotty's, and I give myself a high probability of success.
Well, Rob, I kind of interrupted you a minute ago. What were you going to say?
I'm not sure. I don't really recall, but I got to ask you: you doing the dishes?
Me, no. But let me shut this door. Man, they sprayed my. They did. My daughter's having a boy, and they did the announcement, and the whole company sprayed me with silly string. I would try to wash that shit out of my clothes when I got home. Cody, what would you say? Because the way Cody's brain works, for those who don't know, he is constantly running probabilities, percentages, like on what he's done, what you've done. I mean, his brain is constantly working. And Cody, what would you say your chances, just to give people hope here, from the moment we first went out to now? What do you think they went up? Meaning, you went on a few stalks with me, you glassed with me and Chad. You learned some stuff. Dude, I would say now your probability of killing something, when I say doubled, meaning you went from basically 0. I think you're at 50 to 60% now that you kill something in the first, 2-3. You kill something on the hunt, I have no doubt. Would you agree with that or no?
Yeah, if I can make a few changes, like I said, I'm really comfortable that I could go back to the Davis Mountains and be successful. There's just things you learn by doing, right, that have never been explained in a podcast, like walking behind. Aaron would ask me, he's like, do you want to do this on your own, or do you want to? And I wanted to do a few on my own. He made me do the first one on my own, but walking behind Aaron, and Aaron, nobody says this in podcasts, but you think that Aaron can walk quiet, and he does walk quiet. But the key is walking in balance, just like a boxer walks down another box or swings, they're always in balance. You could push on Aron as he's stepping and he's always in balance. And I think that's the key to being quiet versus me raising my leg and falling on my foot, right? He's always in balance and he's moving. And his range of motion in balance is further, more than likely, from backpacking a lot than mine. So I couldn't keep up without being loud. But if I slow down more, I can keep myself in balance with a shorter range of motion. So just picking up that after the first time I followed you out, I was watching your feet. I'm like, he's just walking forward like I would walk forward if I were boxing or sparring. He's just staying in balance, right? When I stalked on my own, I ended up crawling a lot more than I should have. Aron moves fast when there's wind or when there's heads down. So, he's understanding human behavior, understanding animal behavior. So those are all things that are value add, right? And knowing how close you can get, because I'm accustomed to whitetail, which is a completely different animal. But the biggest thing is getting that experience under my belt. And then really the biggest thing is, it's my first, what I would call a high wage hunt, meaning I've driven 28 hours round trip, the fuel, the cost of all of that, the cost of the hunt itself. It's a high stakes hunt. And I let that get in my head in the hunt. I think I said that to Chad there. I'm like, this is a $6,500 arrow. And he said, because I made a bad shot, Rob, on a 300 class world record mule deer 10 feet away. And, felt pretty bad about it, and it wrecked my head. And Aron turned. It was actually about what would that be? A 175, 28 yards away. There was a 38-yard miss and a 28-yard backstrap.
He was probably. Both bucks were good. The first buck was just ancient and a good buck. The second buck he was 180. The first buck was just a good 6-7 year old,
buck, right?
Good massive buck. The second one, even I cried a little for that one because I'm like, oh, we got it. It was a tank. I mean, legit tank. And not to keep rubbing salt in the wound, but do you think about how much you learned from that?
No, it's a ton, all right? I backstrapped it, made a mistake. And Aron, we coming back, Aron said, hey, your hunt may be over. You paid for this. Was day 2, I think, or day 1. I can't remember. And he's like, hey, your hunt may be over. We're going to have to talk to Scotty. So the first thing I had to learn, because I got real quiet, and that's when I started stacking up probabilities. I'm like, okay, my average shot distance here is 35 to 48 yards. You get a 2 to 3 second window. I'm stacking it up, and I'm like, the probability of me hitting a vital on that goes down pretty fast. I'm going to need better shots. And that's what kind of paralyzed me over the next 9 stalks. I wouldn't take a shot unless I felt it was perfect. But the first thing I had to do was kind of say what?
Because I'll attest to that, because all I could remember the one time was shoot. And I'm sure you're like, shut up. I'll shoot when I want.
I got to say,
you got to get that out of your head, right? But when you do make a mistake, I was in pretty good thought there. And Aron told me, he's like, because I was worried I wasn't going to close. He's like, you want to use a rifle. And that evening, as soon as I backstrapped the animal, I'm like, you know what, I may have to. And that evening, I'm like, no, there's no way I'm doing that. I'll shoot a small little spike with a Tradlab before I use a rifle. I took a firm stance there, but the most important thing I think you can do going on these is be prepared to spend the money and take your hits and take ownership of them and go back, because Scotty doesn't have to invite a trad guy back. Scotty can sell for every tag he has. So if I go back whining, I don't think I'm coming back, right? So I went back and shook his hand, looked him in the eye and said, I made a bad shot. If the hunt's over, you have every right to make it over and there'll be no complaints. And he said, no, Aron said it's not lethal. But first lesson for me was owning your shots. And that's a tough pill to swallow, to drive home with a bloody arrow and a backstrap, blown. But there's a lot riding on those high-end hunts.
Let me read this. This is what Cody texted me after I said, hey, dude, if it gets down and dirty, we could grab the rifle. He said, the money is paid for, the opportunity has already been paid for on a decent mule deer. I have had that opportunity and I fucked it up. I have got my money's worth. We've had multiple stalks, no gun, trad or nothing, unless it's for taking down a wounded deer. I've slept on it, and this is where I've landed. If my pussy gets bigger later in the day, slap me and remind me of this conversation.
You're going to quote it word for word? Oh, my God.
You know,
I wanted to post that, but I didn't. I was like, at least he manned up. You know, I'm like, all right. Cody's like, you know, hell or high water. I'm getting this thing with a stick bow. And that's good for me to know, because if we get 23 yards on a gimme buck that's 130-inch, 3.5-year-old, I can say, Cody, this is a done deal, but it's a 3.5-year-old buck, and he's 135 inches. You choose, but we're here. Rather than don't shoot, it's 3.5, right? And then he'll be like, why didn't you tell me to shoot? I know now where he's at, you know.
So there's a couple things.
I think that's important.
Yeah, I want to unpack something here first. Like Cody, I am so thankful I am not a numbers guy. Listening to you, I mean, to break everything down by your level of probability. I mean, shit, I can go out tomorrow with a 1% probability, and I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna hunt hard. I'm gonna have fun, and that's my expectations. I just can't. I mean, everybody is different, but man, that's really got to weigh on you when I'm not going to go out because it's a 32% probability.
No, it does, and it's the wrong mindset. There's no doubt. But because Chad told me, don't think that way. Well, you can't unthink the way you think.
Yeah.
You just have to learn how to manage it. And like I said, I learned first. I guess what we're skipping is. Yeah.
You can't unthink the way you think. Tradlab.
I mean, the first thing you have to do is level set. I guess we missed that part. First morning out, we're driving out. I paid a lot. To me, this is a really expensive hunt. That's my first big time hunt. And we're driving out. Sun's not out. We're going to glass. And I mentioned something about a 180 or 190 class buck. And somebody mentions like a 150, 160. And I'm like, that's a pretty small buck for this price of a hunt. I
about turned around and smacked the shit out of him.
Yeah, you did. You normally have to watch. Aaron doesn't vocalize this. When he's not on a podcast, he doesn't talk a lot. And you have to watch facial expressions. He'll give you a look, but he doesn't talk a lot. And Chad doesn't talk at all. The guide. Very much. And they were both in the front seat. And I made that comment, and I saw Chad's eyebrows raise. Aaron literally, I think, stopped the truck and pulled out his phone and started showing me pictures. And he's like, you've been educated on Instagram. How big is this buck? How big? And of course, everything was a 190 to me. He's like, this is a 140. This is a 145. This is a 155, right? And I'm like, okay. So you have to level set. And you really have to come to the conclusion that I'm never going to ask a guide or an outfitter again what my chances of success are. I'm going to ask what my chances of an opportunity are, because you own half the equation, right? Scotty had me within 12 yards of a shooter buck, flat-footed. So Scotty gave me the opportunities, and I missed the first 11 or 12. I think 12. One I missed, just flat missed. And I told the guys, first mule deer I see, I'm going to freak out. I'm not going to control my shot. It's just the way I am.
I love your honesty, dude.
Yeah. First, anytime I hunt a new animal, what I've learned this year, if it's the first time I've seen one, it's not going to go well for me. The animal's going to be just fine. And then after that, I let the fear of failure get in the way. And then you just kind of have to, it was a rolling nightmare, right? And I called this person that's inside of me, Gutshot Greenwood. I referred to it one night when we were in camp. Like, there's two people are going to come out whenever I'm getting ready to shoot an animal. It's either going to be Cody or it's going to be Gutshot Greenwood. And Gutshot Greenwood shoots scared, and that's who was there the first 2 days. And, just locking up on the shot, not confident. I came out there with a fixed crawl. Massive mistake. Massive mistake. You can't run a fixed crawl and start pulling crawls while you get a 2 to 3 second window and the deer moves. So the confidence in my ability to shoot like that was really, really low. And just wrecked me for a little bit. And then Aron it was like partitioning variation. He just kept taking excuses away from me. And I posted one of them. Like at one point he was writing in the dirt my yardage. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is going to come down to a mental shot. And to get the deer killed, because I don't deserve some of the recognition that I've gotten on Instagram, it sure would be easier to lie. This is a painful podcast.
We'll talk about that in a minute, the lying of Instagram, because you did good. You know what I mean?
But we ended up killing this mule deer in what I call the kiddie pool, right? The guys had to take me to the kiddie pool. They took me, we're in 1 foot of water. The other kids have pissed in it. I know that's bad, but it's nice and warm here.
You got floaties on your arms.
Yeah. We're going to hang your tree stand for you. We're going to clear all the brush out. We're going to write in the dirt the yardage. And then we're all going to go over to this house about 200 yards away and glass and watch you make the shot. And if you're having mental problems with your shot, worst case scenario just came to life, right? You have to now, all the excuses are taken away, because I can lie to myself pretty easy, right? Whenever there's the heat of the moment. And that's what ended up happening the last day. I'm sitting in a stand. I'm like, all right, you're in the kiddie pool. Gut shot got you here. And I got a gift from God in the form of a text from Aron, because I text Aron, they're watching me. And I'm like, well, they're not watching me. This is all in your head. And Aron texted me and he said, if nothing shows up, shoot I think it was a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old to your right. And I turned my head to my right slowly over my shoulder. And he goes, no, the one right underneath you. And I'm like, they are watching me. I'm under direct observation. So you got 5 or 6, at least 3 killers watching you, because Scotty's not just a guide. Scotty's a legit hunter, a killer, and kind of a Texas badass, and he can even throw it. His son says 5 words a week, and he can rip your head off, and he's got a grandson that makes Aron look like milk toast. So you got this hardcore family there watching you. Aron's watching you. And I wrote back, I'm like, this is going to be, what did I say? Shooting fish in a barrel. And Aron wrote back, yeah, but you're shooting. And that's what I needed.
Way to pump the client up.
That's what I needed. It gave me a case of red ass. I got mad. And I said, and then Gut Shot left the building, because when I get angry, I can shoot under pressure. And I said, okay, what can you do? I know you can't shoot at something 45 yards away. I said, 25 yards in, I can tear the heart out of any mule deer that comes in. I said, that's what you're going to do. You're not going to lay it up and put it in the lungs. I'm going to hit this thing in the heart. And sure enough, a decent one came, and I was getting text from Scotty and Aron, big one coming. So it's a slow trickle. It came in and put it right where I needed to be. But yeah, it was a very tough mental aspect of a high pressure hunt, but it was super awesome in terms of development, but very hard to talk about on Instagram and obviously this podcast, because it's embarrassing to make a fool out of yourself and freeze up and not make a shot, or backstraps happen, right? But they shouldn't whenever you're prepared. So it was kind of tough.
Well,
but
my hat's off to you for talking about it, because honestly, I didn't know where we're going with the whole podcast. But seriously, like when I do episodes with people that, failure's kind of a harsh word, but when you talk about the failures, people appreciate that, because again, what you're saying right here is what we see on Instagram. I don't know what percentage is like real life, but it's not a very big percentage. So
probably about the same percentage of me having success in the high country on a mule deer hunt. That's my guess. After now experiencing it.
Well, the one thing that I want to make sure that everybody kind of clear on that's, listening in is it's not as well. You guys are going to get and Cody heard me say this. The guys coming down for the U hunt with we're calling it the Stickbow group, that your eyes are going to be wide open. Eyes are going to be opened to how easy Texas hunting is. And I'm being a smartass, because it is a mountain hunt. Not all of Texas, but where we're at. And I say, Cody, anyone coming on their first hunt it's not going to be a layup, and I'm thinking in my mind, I didn't say this, is I just went on my, 107,000 stock. That is your 7th stock. I have got, but you every time you go, I mean, that's like the beauty of it is you're learning. And, not everybody can afford to go on hunts like you or the time that I have to go. But if you go out in an area that has animals, you're going to have fun. You're going to have opportunities. It may just be opportunities to see them initially, and you're going to blow them out, and then you might kill one eventually. But it's not the picture that gets painted in a lot of people's eyes on Instagram is far different than reality. For example, Chris Perino shot a huge outlet out there. He was above it for 8 hours, taking sippy cup sips out of a Nalgene because he was stupid and only brought 20 ounces of water with him, and it was 100 degrees. Oof. 8 hours in one spot. You just get to see the animal. You don't see poor Chris sweating his balls off in the cliffs, waiting for this sheep to get out of its bed, and the hours behind the optics. I mean, Cody, would you say, what did you learn about glassing?
God, yeah, glassing is, and that's the one thing I learned a lot about stalking, and glassing is something that's going to take 10,000 hours to glass like these guys glass. You're going to need time behind the glass. I was struggling with the first morning. I didn't know what I was getting into, and I was glassing. I didn't see anything. These guys were spotting about 6, 7, 8 deer, and I made it a competition the next day in my head. I'm like, I'm going to spot these deer before these guys do. And I wasn't doing too well, and I was blaming my optics. And I thought, well, Aaron's got a spotter. Well, Aaron left to go to use the restroom, and I ran down there and stole his spotter. And I was glassing my guts out. I couldn't find anything. He came back and he saw a couple of bucks. So just finding them is going to be a massive challenge if you've never glassed before. It sounds simple to glass effectively, and he even told me how to do it. But seeing them is a whole nother story. It's going to take literally 10,000 hours to glass like these guys glass, to become an outlier and to be able. That's probably one of the hardest traits to pick up in my mind.
And I think you're touching on something, and this is like saying a little bit of who I am. It was frustrating for me to see guys, well, like when you were coming on the scene with the Tradlab, and it was all about shooting, and you're good at like breaking down stuff. But for me, I was frustrated. I'm like, dude, you're talking about shooting. You're not talking about hunting. Like, so, I mean, it's an awesome conversation we're having right now, but like, it's kind of put in perspective, like why, when you first came on the scene with the Tradlab, I was like, man, you're a shooter. Like, what about hunting? So like there's two seriously, two methods or two routes of thought here.
No, yeah, shooting is just certainly one, especially Western hunting. Shooting or Western style hunting is just one small aspect of it. It's that's for certain. But glassing was definitely challenging, and probably in my mind would be the hardest thing for anyone like me to pick up quickly. Like when you think about, should I hire a guide? If nothing else, just somebody with good eyes is worth having, because they were seeing a lot more deer than I was. I got all jacked up on some caffeine drink or whatever that is, and I couldn't. There were all kinds of bad things happening.
You glassed 4 square miles in 3 minutes.
Yeah, it was. I should have cut myself off of that stuff.
You definitely did not cut yourself off. I think you kept, hey, where's that pre-workout? What you kept asking me? Hey, where's that at? What were you calling it?
Love you long time. I was hopped up on this stuff, and I was calling it me love you long time, like the Two Live Crew or the Full Metal Jacket prostitute. But
was he snorting it by then?
No, Aaron eats it, right? So, and he doesn't say, "Hey, this is really going to wreck your life. You shouldn't start this." And he ate a scoop of it the first morning, and I'm like, "Well, I'll try it. I drink coffee. I can handle this." And, I mean, I drink 2 cups of coffee a day. Actually, I'm kind of a tough guy, and I don't know how much caffeine or what. This doesn't even feel like caffeine because it's a slow encroachment. It hits you kind of like bourbon when you're sitting and then you stand up. And I drank it, and the first morning, and I could feel it hitting me, and I said something, and I'm like internalizing I'm like, am I talking too much? Now is it weird that I'm not talking? Are these guys thinking? And then it turns me into a real loose-lipped person. And the second morning I drank it, and I started a fight with Aaron, as we're driving in the truck, because I drink it, we get in the truck to drive where we're going. It feels like nobody's talking, so I start talking. I picked a fight with Aaron, and Aaron's like, "Hey, I can tell you drink some of that." So I'm like, "All right, I'll just be quiet, look out the window, quit making people angry." Third morning, I come out. Aaron gives me more of it, and he shouldn't have. And Scotty never says anything. Scotty's not a joking person. We've driven for like 20 miles, it feels like, and nobody said a word. I decided to make a joke and piss Scotty off. And do you remember Scotty getting sideways? It was
no. What
so
did
I
you say?
I was sitting in the back seat. Nobody was talking. I don't know why I said it. It's completely inappropriate, but he had day 6 arrows in his bow. And I said, "Scotty, you know what the problem is with shooting day 6 arrows?" And Scotty's not a joking kind of guy. He goes, "What?" And I said, "Telling your parents you're gay." And Jesus Christ. Oh yeah, it's funny now. It's funny now. Yeah, it wasn't funny then.
Obviously I didn't drink enough caffeine. I don't even remember that, but it's funny now.
You were on your phone, and when he yelled at me, you raised your head and said, "What happened?" And then you just gave me a look. So I'm like, "All right, just shut up and don't talk. When we see Javelina, get away from these people. You can't be around people right now." So I had to go up there on the side of that mountain, hunt Javelina for an hour or two until I tapered off.
Oh, dude, you're killing me. Any chance you can be down there the end of January?
I shouldn't be on that stuff. And there was nothing wrong with those arrows. I was just hacking on him, but he's not a chummy guy. It's not someone you jack with. I don't know what I was thinking.
Scotty's a trip. He's funny because we hunt together a lot. In fact, he's my spotter on this next hunt, and I've got a 80-pound child dog attacking me right now. Chill out, buddy. And you know, Scotty, he has guided since basically birth. His dad owned a huge guiding operation in Montana for elk. So he guided until he was 40 in Montana, off and on for whitetail and mule deer in Montana, and then whitetail in Texas. And then he guides so he's been around the world and seen a couple things, right? He's seen everything. And that, that time frame where, he probably guided for 20 some years. And there's not much you're going to run by Scotty that he hasn't seen, so he always, he doesn't say a whole lot, but when he does, he can be pretty damn funny. I mean, he's one of my best friends, but with Scotty, for example, telling me stories with his dad. His dad, by the end of his guiding career, had enough. And he's telling me a story about some dude that they're going after this elk, and he licks his finger and he points it in the air and he goes, and I can't remember his dad's name. We'll say it's Dale. Dale, you sure the wind's right for us to make this approach? And his dad goes, "Why don't you take that wet ass finger and stick it in my belt loop and hold the fuck on? We're killing this elk today." And many stories like that where, Scott was like, he goes, "I saw my dad change into something different from where he started to where he ended up because he just got tired of dealing with clients," which I'm sure everybody gets that way. And then, so Scotty got to see all of that and his own, experiences with guiding himself now. So there's not a whole lot that gets Scotty, riled up or whatever. He's just pretty even keel. But I talk to him every day. He's a pretty funny dude once you get to know him. I mean, the thing that was kind of blew his mind is how many numbers are running through Cody's head all day long. Oh. Like, I think I said, Cody, usually they don't bleed for 30 to 40 yards. Scotty's like, "Yeah." And then Cody goes and measures it. Scott's like, "But sure enough, they start bleeding for 30 yards.
It was 33 yards. Like, damn, I was like, that's pretty good.
Dude, Cody, you are awesome, man. I have got to hunt with you sometime.
But Scotty's like, "Wouldn't you just take advice from a dude that shot 100 animals this year? Like, they don't bleed for 30 to 40 yards. And I'm like, "Dude, everybody's brains work different. I have to see it happen. Cody has to see it and then measure it and then run some mathematical equations. And then he'll figure it out, which is, if we all drove red cars, we'd be boring. But Scotty's like, "Man, I barely can turn a computer on. That dude's no joke." He's like, "Holy cow." And then, the lethality and the stocks and the percentages and everything else. Scotty's more of a just get in there and stick a sharp pointy stick through it. We'll be good. So it wasn't like it didn't bother Scott. He was just like, wow, that dude's brain never stops working.
So
yeah,
so Cody,
he's got the right mindset for sure.
So
he has a mindset that I'm striving to develop, actually.
So tell me, so if you're going to go back there tomorrow, what were some of the major changes you'd made, like being this is your first time really trying to stalk animals?
Well, first, we'll start with, I guess, the ease of change. The first thing is ditch. A fixed crawl works great in a tree stand whenever you know your yardages and things are happening slow. I would have been much better off just shooting with a 40, 45 yard point on. I would have been great. So just changing that and having a little bit of a lighter arrow. I'm not talking about a light arrow. I'm talking about just a little bit lighter arrow and a longer fixed crawl would have benefited me greatly. And being prepared for that 35 is actually a pipe dream. I mean, being really confident at 40, 45 and being ready to do that quickly would have been a really good idea. That's the most part, being ready mentally for owning some, having a high risk hunt. That's just something you have to have under your belt, being ready to take the risk that you need to take. And really this is the first time that I've hunted my whole life. And this is the first time I think I've kind of dawned on why I hunt or why I'm pursuing it. Like for you, Rob, I've heard you say that, 100 times, you're a genuine outdoorsman. Like you enjoy being outdoors. For me, it's about being put in that position of making the shot and keeping my head straight, having that opportunity and keeping my head straight and not shooting scared is, I think, the reason I'm doing this. And I think that's the most important thing I could do to improve, putting animals on the ground. So being more mentally prepared for a high pressure shot like that would have been good. And then I think that comes from a lot of little choices every day. But then outside of that, it would be, because you get, I guess Aaron says it all the time, but he makes fun of whitetail fit. You really don't require a lot of fitness to walk to your tree stand, climb a tree and get in there. But when you get out here, it's, and you're in the mountains, what are those 5Ks, maybe a 6K? It's not like they're massive mountains, but it's enough to rack your brain. I was worried. I'd twisted an ankle in a barbed wire fence. I was worried about that. That was the least of my worries. It's the extra weight and not being in shape from, COVID quarantine and being lazy and living out of an RV or in my house and hunting that hurt me the most. And I think maybe having that dryad of probably going deeper than most people would, but just like the mental, spiritual, and physical side, I think will help you in the moment of truth as well. Give you that confidence you need to keep your mind straight and not shoot scared. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's what I walked away with.
Yeah. When you talk about the shooting and the mental aspect, just being able to shake something off. I mean, I see like your personality, what you're saying, you're a numbers guy. I could see how a miss would just wreck you, being like so into percentages and numbers and all that stuff. For me, man, like, oh shit, I just missed that. Dadgummit. Like you gotta
do it with about eight or 9,000. And it's not like Aaron let it set for a while. Like we get back in the truck. He's like, hey, hunt may be over. You cut hair, you cut a check. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, the probability of making this shot's about 28%.
28%.
And I'm like, there's no way. I mean, I've shot 300 rounds. I know what I can hit and what I can't hit. So I was stacking that up. I got quiet for about 15 minutes. And I'm like, and I think I said it the next morning. I'm like, the probability of success here is slim to none if I didn't have all of this support. So it's just being prepared and having the confidence. Everyone gets their confidence in different ways. I need to have legit confidence. So when I got pissed off at Aaron and I told myself, right, what can you do? Here's all the shit. Gutshot Greenwood's been talking about what he can't do. What can you do? 25 yards and then I can tear the heart out.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. $8,000 check, whatever you want. Let's put it on the line. And that's where that's how you go from shooting scared to shooting angry or shooting strong, whatever you want to call it. But I didn't even know buck fever was a form of flight until I started studying it, because I've screwed up some shots this year, but that's the number one for me, is controlling that, not going into flight.
You got anything to add to that, Aaron?
Master it.
Not too much. I mean, as we're kind of laughing and joking, and please, everyone listening in, I'm not nearly as bad to hunt with as Cody is portraying. I'm actually quite funny, depending upon your sense of humor. But you probably don't want to screw up too much in front of me because I might make fun of you a little, not a lot. Something might come out. I think that when people go into these hunts, whether it's cheap and expensive or whatever, a short-term memory is going to be pretty vital. You can't get down on yourself too much, and Cody, I'm sure could relay on this. I go into a stock so confident, I know the animal is already dead. It is hard to get your mind. Now that doesn't mean it happens, but if the stock is good enough for me to go on, to me, in my mind, the animal is already on the ground without any doubt, and it's like that the entire way. Now, again, that's not to say I don't screw up, because I screw up all the time, but it is important to be that confident in your stock and your abilities and your shooting, because the entire time, rather than thinking, okay, get sub 35, make sure everything's set, make sure the animal's not aware that I'm there, put an arrow into it, no problem. It's that simple, rather than going up the mountain. Oh, what if the wind's bad? Oh, I better not move. I might not make the shot. What if I punch the whatever. From the moment I see that animal, I know that animal's dead. Doesn't always happen, but I think it's important not just to shoot angry or shoot confident. Stock confident is just as important. If you don't have confidence in your approach and your stock and your ability and your skills to read animals and reading the wind and the terrain, and you're wondering what you should be doing rather than acting, you're going to have problems. So I agree with Cody. Shooting confident is very important. Stocking confident is just as important, or you will not have a shot. And that was something else I think you probably, I guess you could chime in on that. Did you probably learned that you can get away with a bit more at times than probably you thought as far as movement goes, or it seemed to me. I mean, did you look back and think, Jesus, I can't believe Aaron just sprinted up to that tree?
Yeah. When we were running, I'm like, right, I was starting to want to tell Aaron how to stalk, but I stopped myself. I'm like, hey, we're going to get busted. But we didn't. And they're definitely a different type of, and that's why you hire guides. Some people gave me a hard time for going with Scotty, but shit, if you're used to hunting whitetail, there's no way you would do some of this stuff. You wouldn't get away. You wouldn't even come close, especially jumpy whitetail. And being with guys that can find them, being with guys that know their behavior, pays dividends in terms of success.
Well, yeah, if you haven't done it before, I mean, now if you were to go out on your own, like go on a high country mule deer hunt, you've already like advanced your learning curve quite a bit by going with a guide, right?
Yeah, that was the intent, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a hunt, it's an education. If you've never done it before, it would take a lot of trips out to Colorado to compensate for how many. I mean, we got within 35 yards 8 times, got within 50 yards 12 times, right? And got within freaking 12 yards once. So I mean, it was you don't get that. I don't think guys that go out and do this on their own are going to get that experience. So I think if you're wanting to rack up experience, that's the best way to do it for sure. But yeah, I was definitely learning what we could get away with and what we couldn't get away with, because the wind would kick up or the animal would put his head down. He would pick up and run. And when I was doing my stalk by myself, I'm crawling all over the place with a bino harness on, picking gravel out of it and dragging an arrow master around and like in a freaking bow with a flipper on it through the rocks. And I'm like, some part of this plan isn't coming together. And they're sitting 50 yards away on the bumper.
Well, it's farther than that, or we would have shot it from where we were. But we were probably 180 away, I think, because I ranged it kind of hidden over the hill. And I know at times
he said we can hear you crawling.
I was trying to use the force. Move now. And I mean, Chad's like, calm down, Aaron. I'm like, I'm hoping if I think it hard enough, he's going to hear it. And Chad's like, I don't think he's going to hear you, bro. Because I'm the animal head down, head away, feeding. And I'm like, go, bro, go. Come on, go. Well, I'm sure I was driving Chad crazy because he doesn't want to hear me say what he's thinking because he's already thinking it. But if you've never been on a stock before and you've hunted sketchy whitetail, there's no way I'm going to talk somebody in unless I'm beside them of saying move now and move fast, because they're like, hell no, it's 52 yards from me. And I'm like, that means you only got 20 to go. So get your ass up there. Well, if you're not used to that, it's like me blowing out whitetails trying to draw on them when they're coming in because they're scared to death. I'm like, oh, that usually works for elk, son of a bitch. Didn't work for that guy. I'll be damned. Well, there's different things you get away with different animals, and obviously different age groups of the animal. And that buck you were stalking on, it was a miracle he was 4 years old. Dude, you did good. I mean, you got close. The thing that was smart is when he did look at you, you didn't move. You just laid there. Much more patience than I have, because I'm like, ooh, that's a committed man. I wouldn't be sitting there with my face in that grass. Poor Cody. I'm sitting on the bumper like, oh, that must suck. But you don't learn that until you go out and do it. And the adrenaline of stalking in on a mule deer or a sheep or something like that, it's hard you can't quantify it in words. It's impossible. It is very
fun.
I mean, how much was your arrow shaking and crap when you were on those stalks alone? You had some big bucks in front of you when you were by yourself.
Yeah, no, you don't feel the needles in your skin until you get home that night, right? So you're ripped with adrenaline, and it's fun, and you're focused, and time slows down everything that you love about hunting. But I knew, because I go back and I'm like, how the hell do you low crawl with a bino harness? And he says, you don't, you take it off. I said, I've never heard that on a podcast. I've listened to every podcast. I've never heard anybody say that. What a bunch of horse shit. Somebody could at least say that once, because I'm crawling and it's just dirt and cactus and gravel digging into my bino harness. Like, this is horrific. But you learn quick, or you don't, or you just fail miserably. But every stock had something. The one of the best that we went on was when they were moving up and down the side of the hill, and hell, Aron was running. It felt like we were doing sprints, right? We would move. They were on just in their edge. He would move. And there was my favorite one. We sat in the morning, he shot an azimuth, and they had me within 70 yards of where these bucks were coming up. And I blew it by turning around to them and signaling them to get the truck out of there. Cause I thought the truck, these were really, how big do you think those bucks were? The biggest one, was that a 170?
Yeah, 170. I watched him for a while. He was, I would have shot him without blinking an eye. Probably 170 and 158 to 162. Two good bucks.
They're coming right to me. They're parked on the road, and me being used to whitetail, I'm like, they're not going to come out with that truck here. So I'm waving at them to move. They didn't want to move. I kept waving. They moved, and I screwed it up by asking them to move, because that inadvertently turned them. By them starting the truck, they turned and kind of paralleled us, and I never got an opportunity. But it was really, I don't know how much ground we covered, but Aron shot an azimuth, and I guess that's one aspect of hunting that I never really appreciated, was land nav. But shooting that azimuth and moving across and getting that close to them without seeing them was eye-opening. And just give you an idea how green I was. This is embarrassing, but that morning, I didn't know what Aron had made an announcement. It's funny, he never talks, but when he has to go to the bathroom, you get these short interval announcements that he needs to use the restroom, and they get closer and closer together. And he moves from his chant of what he needs to do to, hey, do you have nice thick socks on? And I'm like, yeah, but I brought toilet paper. You're not using my fucking socks. And he goes, no, for stocking, you idiot. I said, oh yeah, I got brand new John Tough socks on. And Chad's the most even kill person in the world, and even Chad was like, oh God, we're not going to kill anything. That was the first morning.
No, man, I'm with you, Cody. Your defense has got to be up. I'm with you there.
$30 socks. I'll cut my pockets out. You can use that. We're not using my socks.
Well, now keep in mind the way that my brain is going a million miles an hour on potential, which Cody got a little better idea of how his brain works with numbers. I'm looking at rocks. I'm looking at weeds. I'm looking at yucca bushes. I'm planning the stock, where we can run, where we can sit, where we got a low crawl, where we're going to go, what's between us and them, the distances. I'm trying to memorize that. I'm talking about all that, and then I'm like, man, I got to take a shit. Hey, Cody, did you bring any thick socks? You're not wiping your ass with my socks. I got toilet paper. I'm like, no, for the stock, but my brain doesn't stop. right? It's 100 miles an hour, and then I'm like, and I have to poop. Just kind of flew out, right? And so Cody thinks I'm wiping his butt with his socks, when in actuality I was just going to my first spiel about the stock that we were talking about. So I thought it was pretty comical, but what we were doing there and what I was explaining to Cody is I was shooting an azimuth to the farthest point away that I could see. And then I was taking a back azimuth. So when we drove around, when we got to the point we were just at, I knew when the deer were in line. I shouldn't give away all my secrets with where we were. So it was a straight line distance if we were heading to where we just were, which was over 1.5 miles probably away. So in this case, there was a road there, an old farm 2-track. So we stopped and, Cody gets out, the deer are coming. It worked out like it was supposed to. And Cody's looking back like to drive away. And we're not, I don't know, what were we, probably 80 yards from here or something?
Yeah, something like that.
And I'm like, no, we're not driving. And then he says to drive, no. Finally, like the third time, I'm like, it's his hunt, drive off. And later on, he's like, well, don't listen to me. I'm like, well, I didn't listen to you 2 or 3 times. By the 4th try, I'm like, piss on it. He wants us to move.
You should have just flipped me off, and then I would have known, and then I could have gone back to, because they would have been dead. They were coming right.
We just knew that by the time they might be able to see the truck, you would have had an arrow in them, and they're a lot less nervous seeing a parked, truck, because there's farm trucks and everything out there, in comparison to, 2 fat guys or 1 fat guy walking down the road. It's different, or hearing the truck start or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I thought, I thought it was like a great experience for you, because you got a little bit of spot and stock. You got some glassing. We got to talk about age of animals, which I don't know that you needed help with that, but scoring wise, talked about that, and aiming methods. That was a big one that, you can see why I have the system I have for out west in comparison to, string walking or a fixed crawl or whatever. There's certain things that are more conducive than others, depending upon where you're at.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But yeah, the plus 180 or minus 180 to cut your 360 in half, that was a pearl. That's a good one.
Cody,
Rob, were you going to say something?
So tomorrow, if you were going to book a hunt now, like after being on this hunt, you're going to book a hunt up in Canada, or, for bear, moose, whatever. What kind of questions, what are you looking at now, after your last experience? How are you going to question an outfitter? How are you going to narrow it down?
I'm probably going to, I've used several outfitters this year, and I haven't been happy with a lot of them, but like I said, I'll never ask an outfitter about their success rate. We own too much of that equation to even ask them about that. It's about how many opportunities you'll have, not how many times they've closed. And I would be interviewing people that I know have leveraged outfitters before I invest in another one. But I know I'm definitely going to focus on maybe fewer hunts. I know next year I'm going to Africa, and I'm going to go hunt Scotty again. But I plan on. I'm really addicted to high stakes hunting. Like it seems like the more that's at stake, it's not about really the big animal because of the big animal. Big animals are cool. It's the big animal because it makes it more challenging to be who you want to be when you're making the shot. Or the longer the drive, the longer the stalk, the longer the sit. That's what's really fun. So I would look at a reputable outfitter that's going to give me opportunities, and make sure they understand that I'm a trad guy, because I think that's a big deal. And then the rest of it's really on me. When you find a good outfitter, take ownership of your shots. Scotty could have called that hunt when I backstrapped that buck, and I would have never posted a single bad. I had to do some soul searching, because my first initial thought was to not be the person I want to be, obviously, and make excuses. But whenever you get down to it, I paid the money and I drove the distance, and I gathered all the gear to have that opportunity, and I blew it. And you got to take ownership of that. Don't look for charity, and look them in the eye and tell them that. Tell them, call the hunt if you want to call the hunt. You completely understand it. And because I don't think trad guys or people that don't act like that are going to get invited back to good outfitters. Having hunted with Scotty now, and I've hunted 5 outfitters this year. There's a night and day difference between hunting with Scotty than there is hunting with a lot of other outfitters. So I'm assuming I was dealing with probably I think there's 10% of the outfitters are 80% of the big success. And you're not going to get invited back if you don't take some ownership of your actions. And if you can't close your end of the equation, they're going to give you the opportunities. You gotta be able to close on your own. So for me, it's finding the right outfitter and making sure I'm prepared, and got my head screwed on straight to deal with a more high pressure shot. But that's kind of what I'm looking forward to the most, is being put in that position again. It's really cool.
Now, when you said high stakes, in the beginning, you were saying high stakes as far as writing a check. Now, when you're saying high stakes this time, you're talking about big animals, more pressure just in the shot.
Just in the shot, right? I mean, you add it all up. I mean, you take a week of vacation, right? You drive. It was a 28-hour round trip drive for me. There's cost associated with that. There's cost associated with the hunt. All of that stuff's going through your mind when an animal's sitting at 43 yards and the Full Metal Jacket sergeant's yelling in your ear, "Why aren't you killing this buck pile?" And it's all going through your mind. You're like, all right, if I gut shot this thing, it's all going to pot. And you can't think like that. And it's only one way to not deal with that, and that's to be confident and know your capabilities and get there. So it's just, I'm highly motivated to be put in that position again and have another opportunity, because I feel like, as far as I'm concerned, my mule deer hunt, it's not something I'm notching in my hat right now. I think that was a kiddie pool hunt. I think Scotty did what he had to do to get me on an animal in my comfort zone, but I don't deserve to be. There's no way I'm hanging my hat up on that. I want another opportunity to go out and get one on a spot and stock and have that split second opportunity and not be afraid to take it.
So Aaron, from a guide's perspective, what do hunters, what's somebody looking at a hunt, what should they be thinking about coming from a guide's perspective?
Man, I would say first thing when you meet your, and this isn't the outfitter, because there's a whole shit show along with this when you book the hunt with an outfitter and everything else. But if you get your guide, and don't bullshit them because they get tired of being lied to. If you can only shoot 30 yards, you better tell them, I can only shoot 30 yards, because believe me, if you're at 40, I'm going to be telling you to shoot sub 40, unless you tell me you can't. Different story. Tell them how far you can shoot, what you're comfortable with, what your experiences are, things like that. Let them know that what kind of animal you're looking for. Now, he may laugh at you, but if you say, hey, I'm a recurve hunter, I shoot traditional, I'm on my first hunt and I'm looking for a 185-inch deer, you're probably not going to get to shoot anything, and he's probably going to talk about you that night at camp. But if you're like, hey, I want a mature animal, not too worried about size, I just want them to be over 4.5, I'm looking for a good experience, and I need to get around 30 yards, if not closer. Your life is going to be a lot easier if you have that conversation before the hunt starts. Because if you have it later on and you get a 190-inch deer and you're at 38 yards and you're not shooting, he is not going to be happy with you. I doubt. He's going to be like, why didn't you shoot? Well, I can't shoot that far. Well, his approach may have been different. He may not even have gone after that buck. But if he knows ahead of time, then you're far ahead, especially on size. Because, if you get in on an animal and you're like, oh, that's not big enough, and you just spend an hour and a half getting there, he's not going to be real excited about that either. So you want to keep those things in mind, and then have the right gear for the most part. Have the gear that you need, and have your shooting and everything else dialed in as much as you can. At the end of the day, you can only do your best, and nobody is going to give you crap if you've done your best and put your heart into it and done everything you can. Just be as upfront with them as possible.
Aaron, I think that's one thing I didn't touch on, because people make fun of, expensive hunting clothes quite a bit online. You see it. And I think I told you I don't remember what Sitka piece it was, but it was a couple $100 and it ended up being a windbreaker when it got to the house. And I'm like, Jesus, I got duped. I felt like I got duped, and I'm a big Sitka fan. But when we were on that hunt, what was it, an hour and 45-minute drive back to the cabin? Something like that. And I went out on that tank. Right. So I went out on the tank, and as I'm sitting on that tank, the first problem was it was extremely hot, and we were worried about me. I was worried about me baking. A front came in while they pulled away, and I had my
And the snow
striker with
fixed
me,
that.
and I had what was it?
I said the snow fixed that. It literally went from 80 to snowing in about, what, 2 hours?
Really?
Yeah. And I'm
Holy
on this
crap.
tank with nothing but me and whatever's in my pack. And luckily, I had a puffy, had the Calvin vest, and then I had that windbreaker that I paid $300 for and was angry at myself about. And suddenly I felt like the smartest man in the world, because you put that stuff on, and if I hadn't had that, I would have literally been texting them. Hunt would have been over. So bringing $1,500 to $2,000 worth of gear on a big hunt seems like a good idea when you realize what's at stake. That damn windbreaker saved me.
So was that the vest, that windbreaker vest?
It was a mountain jacket.
Oh, yeah.
You get that on your front door and you think, I can't believe I paid that much money for a windbreaker. And then you're out there freezing, you put it on, you're like, I am the most wisest man on the planet.
Well, and as we're talking about this, I have no doubt there's going to be people listening into this, yelling at the computer, yelling into their mic. We can't afford that. What Cody's trying to say is what I think you're trying to say is bring the applicable clothing that's needed for the hunt. If you can afford high-end clothing, it's certainly worth it. Obviously, any windbreaker that's any good is going to do a good job, but there's something to be said. And you can tough it out. I don't want to hear that guys have been did the whole like flannel shirt shit and Fred Bear. I got it. But when it goes from 80 to snowing in 2 hours, and what you probably have, 25-mile-an-hour wind gusts?
It was. I was estimated to be around 30, 35. Yeah, it was ripping.
It was stout enough to where Chad and I took a nap, and I got so cold I had to cover myself up with the blankets because I didn't want to roll the window up or all the jackets. So I didn't wake up Chad, and was shivering like uncontrollably to a point I finally started the truck up and rolled up the window because I couldn't take it anymore. Not like whining about that. That's just how cold it got, to a point earlier in the day I was in T-shirt sweating my balls off. It helps when you have whatever the clothing is. If you can keep you on the mountain longer, I mean, it certainly helps. And down there's just really huge temperature swing.
The last year and a half, I was, I've said it before, I was one of the old crusty guys that, poo-pooed high-end clothing for a long time, right? My freaking old wool pants, that's the way to go. This last year and a half, man, I am floored at what minimal clothing can do. It's just, if you can afford it, man, it's just amazing what that stuff can do.
Yeah, you don't want, because that would have ended the hunt, and you only get 4 days. So there's 25% of your hunt gone because you couldn't stay out there. And, visibility was dropping, but it was still well within my effective range, and 30-mile-an-hour gusting winds, but, and you're sweaty, and then the cold front comes in. You just prop your pack up, get behind your pack, and put your clothes on and be thankful you got them, because it was just a mental note. I'm like, if you're going to go on a big hunt, you've got all this time and money invested, you don't want this to get in the way.
I'm still hung up on the 4 days, 25%. I'm still running the numbers. See how you come up with that.
1 and 4. Yeah, if you have 4 quarters, Rob, you'd make $1.
Oh shit,
that's 25
right.
a piece.
Damn it, You're right. That's good stuff. Are we missing anything?
Well, Cody, while we're talking about it, what would you have wished I did different?
Oh, there
Scott,
you go.
Or Chad. And making fun of you doesn't count. You can't say that.
Well, what I needed, Chad, you don't expect, Chad's a guide, right? He's a really even keeled, quiet guy. But nothing from a guide perspective, but that was it the third day I was trying to pick a fight with you on the range? I was just trying to get myself, I just needed somebody to tip the scale to get me angry. So I took Aaron out there. I'm like, let's shoot for pressure, because I realized I'm shooting scared. And he wouldn't, and I'm trying to get him to shoot. And he's like, are you sure you want this? I'm like, let's shoot for pressure. And he wouldn't do it. But I needed, if Scotty, for example, when he had me on the ground and that buck was 12 yards away and I didn't shoot it, at that point, I needed to become self-aware that there's a problem, right? You got a problem. You're not taking shots. And did it on my own, but guides don't owe you that. But having a guide that'll look at you and go, what the hell's the problem? Why aren't you taking these shots? And punch in the mouth a little bit and get you back on track.
I don't have that problem. I definitely don't have that problem.
But you know what I mean? There was clearly a problem when Scotty gets you within 12 yards of a 5-year-old. And I was worried if I raised my bow arm, it would jump the deer. And in my mind, I'm like, it'll jump, I'll shoot, it'll be a spine or something. And, you got to get it out of your head.
Oh, man, you are in a bad spot if you're thinking all that stuff. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he had a nice 5-year-old 12 yards from me on the ground, flat-footed. And it doesn't get any easier than that.
I got photos of it, but I haven't posted them.
Yeah, that's when I said to myself,
dude, I have you and Scotty in the bush and the buck standing in front of you. And if it was recording, it would have heard me saying, shoot. But
yeah,
it doesn't always pan out. But were you shitting your knickers when that thing came in?
No, I was, I knew it was coming in. We watched it from a long time, but it's just hard to explain it. In my mind, it's embarrassing, but I was shooting scared. So I was scared to miss. And when I let it walk and I turned to Scotty, I said, well, I was worried if I raised my arm, it would jump. He just gave me this look. And I'm like, yep, I deserve a lot more than that look. So I kind of went back to the RV and gathered myself up. And that's when the next day I'm like, something's dying today. You got to get angry. You just got to get angry. Or I do. I know that won't make sense to a lot of people. I think a lot of people walk around ready to shoot calm. I don't. I've got to be in the right mindset, which is why it's a point of development for me. And I know Bish, for example, he's a killer. He always says, Cody, you overthink everything. All right, well, I can't overthink everything. So I've got to find a way to quickly transition to Cody and not gut shot Greenwood.
Maybe you should be when they're coming, instead of like overthinking like your percentages and stuff, just start thinking about the weight of the animal. Just like
that doesn't work.
I bet that.
And I'll point out, I'll point out, I'm trying to be honest about this so people will learn from it, because I have my lethality numbers for the year. I'm far above average. So I think this is something, I wasn't self-aware of this until a recent kill where Tim King pulled me aside where I was hunting on his place. He's like, when's this shit going to end? When are you going to start remembering what happened when you shoot an animal? I mean, because he's a friend, right? I guess you could say he owes you that conversation, but I wasn't even aware I had a problem until he had that conversation with me. I think that was just 2 or 3 kills ago. And he's like, when are you going to start understanding what happens when you make the shot? When are you going to be able to tell me what happens when you shoot an animal? When you don't know what happens, you're just blacking out and, shooting. He didn't use the term shooting scared. And I had to go research it. And I realized it was flight in a fight or flight sense, and which I consider a character flaw now, and just trying to drill that out. But for years I've hunted and I thought buck fever was the fun part of the hunt. Now I view buck fever as a massive liability. The fun part is overcoming that for me.
Now I understand. Now I understand what you're saying. Now you just put it in context. I understand what you're saying. So to add to what you're same thing. And I think, Aaron talks about trigger time. So like trigger time helps you work through this stuff. In 2 days, I had shots at 2 coyotes. The first coyote, 30 plus yards through the trees. Never would have taken the shot on a deer, but it's a coyote. I don't know what the percentages of success would have been, so don't ask me, Cody. But I make a great shot. I feel everything's controlled. I shoot right under that sucker. I mean, it was just, I felt good about the shot. The next day, I have a coyote come in. I have him at maybe 12 yards in the wide open, and I just lose it. I mean, just completely lose my mind. It was a horrible shot. So now I understand where you're coming from and where you're going with this shooting. What are you saying? Shooting scared?
Shooting scared versus, and I know it's probably pretty personal, but I call it shooting angry. And it's something my dad said to me actually when I was young. Shoot angry. There's predator and prey, and if you're shooting like prey at you're not going to be successful as a predator. And I know that's deeper than most people want to go, because most people take vacation and hunt and just want to have fun. But for me, it's a matter of personal development, and I consider gut shot Greenwood a massive character flaw. And when you look at people like Scotty, he doesn't have that in him. He strikes me as a very even kill guy that can probably shoot and maybe not have that happen. Maybe they do, and they just, I don't know. But
Is it?
I think it's a bigger issue than what we think because nobody talks about it. I've never seen anybody go on one of these hunts, do podcasts, and say, "Man, I really blew it." And even Aaron gave me a pass. Right? He posted first. He's like, "Cody passed bucks. I didn't pass them. I froze for fear of missing." There's a big difference in terms of your character between passing and freezing. And it's just something I want to put out there so people, that there's Cody Greenwood, which doesn't want to talk about this, and there's a Tradlab commitment of being honest about everything, not just gear. And I think the more we're honest with ourselves, the more there is to hunt for. We're not hunting for an animal, we're hunting for personal development, quite frankly. So it's made me hungrier to hunt high risk, high stakes hunts. To answer your question, I want more opportunities to be in that position.
You got anything?
I'm sure my head will be in my hands, but
yeah, you got awesome. Anything to add to that, Aaron?
Yeah, everybody's high stakes. I mean, and Cody looking obviously a little bit different. Backpacking in 8 miles and doing a 12-day backpack trip with good numbers of animals is going to be a lot higher stakes than money.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I know you know that, but for people listening in, if you're not physically able or don't have the time, I get it, and there's high stakes. I mean, I've been on hunts, 95,000, not me, I'm broke, but $95,000 sheep hunts where I'm looking at a guy, it's not high stakes for him because $95,000 to him is like $95 to us. But if you put that guy 7 miles in or on a stone sheep hunt or a mule deer hunt, I think for you, Cody, what's going to be your ultimate high stakes hunt by the time you shake out this big bag of snakes is you're going to go on a true do-it-yourself backpack hunt for elk or mule deer. And it may be a landowner tag where you get a little bit better unit or, by all means, you certainly want deer there. But you talk about the ultimate high stakes is day 9, food deprivation, sleep deprivation on an impossible stock where you have a 3-mile trek back to your glassing point and a mile trek back to your camp. If you blow this, there's no higher stakes than that.
That is the apex for sure. Yeah.
And I think you'll be at that point. Yeah, but you know what you got to do to get ready. You're getting there. And I mean, yeah. I would say that Rob took a higher stakes shot out of what have I shot for whitetails? Hell, animals this year. I don't know, a lot. Rob just took a much higher stakes much higher stakes shot on an animal because he's in the armpit of the earth of North Idaho for whitetail hunting on public land. The shot he just took with an hour left of daylight on the last day is far tougher than even the Aoudad shot, which is extremely difficult killing Aoudad. Rob's shot at that whitetail was much higher stakes than anything I've done because lower numbers, higher people, horrible weather, obviously all those things combined, and not trying to toot your horn too much, Rob, but that shot is much higher stakes than any shot I've taken this year, except maybe Aoudad, just for the simple fact of there's lots of whitetails where I'm at. If I miss one, I'll just shoot one the next day. Maybe not as big, maybe a little smaller, but I'm going to get another shot. Rob, you had what, 1 shot all year at a good buck?
Yeah.
Maybe 2?
Yeah.
I had that Tuesday morning by 7 a.m.
I want to hang out with you. And I guess it comes full circle because, getting more shots. I mean, it does add into that pressure shot, but that's fascinating. I mean, Cody, would you say it's buck fever? Would you not say it was buck fever? Is it different?
I think buck fever's, and when I started after Tim King kind of lit me up, I started researching it, and golfers call it yips. Pitchers have it as well, and it's performance anxiety. And when you listen to these guys talk, it's just your brain saying, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? And if the answer is no, then you can freeze or you can get buck fever. And really, if you've got that shallow breathing and you don't remember what happened, that's that elk that you always talk about chewing cud while the coyote's eating its ass out, working its way up. It's just blacked out. And that's what your brain's doing. It's like, hey, you're not safe. You're not going to remember what happened here versus I know I can do this. And it's not a fake confidence. It's a certainty. And I'm not worried anymore. And you know exactly what happened. You know exactly where you hit the animal. You know it's going to die. And that's a completely different shot. So
Interesting. That's good stuff,
for me,
man.
It's just managing that. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, worth every. And it's not just the money; it's the time, it's the drive. Jesus Christ, that was a long drive. The dust storms, all of the stuff that you go through to get there, instead of sit on the couch looking at Facebook. Having that experience is priceless, absolutely priceless, because you can't learn. I kept saying this to Aaron because it was kind of eye-opening to me. You can't learn this stuff from a podcast. You're not going to learn how to stalk. You're not going to learn how to glass for sure, and you're not going to learn how to be who you want to be at the moment of truth, if that matters to you. If not, just let it rip. There's people that are perfectly happy with that. But yeah, great experience.
Awesome. Aaron, you got anything else?
No, I don't. I guess the one thing I would add is, when you're taking advice from people, if you're coming out west or whitetail hunting, and the one thing that I think really screwed Cody far more than anything else was his aiming method. I think Cody would have. I think you would have killed the first buck that ran by, unless maybe gut shot Cody took over. But even then, I think you would have killed him.
Because making 2 bad shots in a row isn't great for confidence. You'd think, Aaron, with the network that I had, that somebody would reach out to me and say something before I went. It's kind of odd.
I should have bugged you to shoot gap shoot and try to have like a 35, point on. That's been my experience of what's best for Western hunts. And going back, if I would have known, I would have mentioned it. But I think the first 2 bucks you shot at, you would have killed both with a different aiming method. There's other things we can, go back on. Should you have waited? Should you have stood out? But no doubt, I think you would have killed both of them with a little bit different aiming method. The fixed crawl, I totally get it for whitetail hunting, but there was one stock Cody and I went on, like 14 different deer, a bunch of bucks in the group.
Jesus.
Deer popping out. We made this amazing stock. They had no idea. Well, I say that they could see movement. I had a decoy in front of me. They're looking, popping their heads
33 yards broadside.
I wasn't going to say that. Dead deer. But we had deer between 28 and 40, pretty significantly, or pretty regularly on that stock. 40 is obviously pushing it, but with a different aiming method, I forget, I range a tree when we're going in, and I said, the tree's 40. Obviously, we're going to be closer every step we take. But he's got to be more precise, and trying to go gap shoot with a fixed crawl is a stymie for your brain. And so a different aiming method, I think, would have been really the difference of you tagging out the first day and on a spot and stock compared to, tagging out, the third day like you did. Nothing wrong with the way you tagged out. I just think that would have made a huge difference. So when you're taking advice, if you're whitetail hunting, don't necessarily go off what the cool thing is to do. Go what's most applicable for that specific hunt you're going on, or even when you're getting started. If you hunt out west, you might want to figure out one way, and if you hunt back east, you may want to figure out another. But one does not fix one does not necessarily always work for all of them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Dwayne Martin has a saying. He always says it. He says he's never more than 3 bad shots away from full-blown target panic. And when you make 2 in a row on bucks, your confidence you're not quite as confident as you once thought you were. And to make it worse, Scotty ran off with my bow one evening to go get some fuel or something. Aaron's like, here, just shoot my bow. Son of a bitch, 40 yards, dead center, 40 yards, dead center. I'm like, Jesus, because you just don't have confidence in your own.
He shot my bow so good. I was like, dude, just take it. And then we're scooting in. I'm like, oh, we're at 30. Put the top of the insert at the bottom of the target. Bullseye. Oh, we're at 28. Have a couple inch gap there. Bullseye. I'm like, I wonder if this is an eye opener for him, because even I'm impressed. He didn't have one arrow out of the paper plate out of like 6 arrows. They're all wadded in the middle. And then I'm like, shoot a bear shaft. Whatever, it's windy. I'm like, just shoot it. Boom. Just off the right side in the target, or just out of the right side of the group. He's like, Jesus, I shouldn't have done that.
So,
but it's the aiming method I've got used to.
Yeah, so maybe Aaron's not really that good at a shot. It's just his setup is good.
Probably.
I think there's,
and if it's any consolation there, Cody, I am not looking forward to shooting in front of Aaron.
that's the other thing that's definitely helpful is to get, and I'm getting used to that. But when you go on these hunts, you are going to have people. I've hunted a lot this year, and you're going to have 4 or 5 guys watching you, and they're all ready for the hunt to be over, right? They're ready for you to close on your end of the equation. If you're not ready for 4 or 5, it's not just Aaron, 4 or 5 guys watching you shoot. And when you don't make the shot, it's not like they're going to come up there and pat your little bottom and tell you you're okay. You just blew a bunch of work for them. And now they get to get up early the next freaking morning and do it again. So that no one's powdering your balls for you and telling you you're doing good. You got to be ready to take ownership of that. And you got to get ready for those shoots if you go on these. I guess part of me has a chip on my shoulder because the first instant message I got or DM I got is must be nice.
Oh,
there was a picture and I went to night school for a long time to be able to afford this opportunity. And it's not like this opportunity was a layup. It was a mind melt. It crushed my ego. Right. And then I got to be honest about it. I could have easily. So these guys that just like me, cause I would have probably said the same thing 3 years ago. When you see these guys, going on these big adventures and making a kill, man, don't criticize them because those are high stake arrows and it takes a lot of guts just to step up there and put yourself in that position. And you're not taking the easy road by going on these big hunts. You're taking the easy road or an easier road by hunting by yourself in the woods. You make a bad shot, no one's going to know about it. And you just have to come to terms with that. I know people gave, what's the Bob Lee guy? Friend of yours, Aaron, what's his name?
Oh, Jake.
Yeah, people gave Jake trouble with his bear. That was an expensive hunt. That was time off. That was a lot of effort. And I even messaged Jake after this experience. People gave him crap about it. Until you've done it, I would keep your opinions to yourself because it's a different game than you gut shot something by yourself and nobody knows the truth, and pretty soon you can start forgetting about the truth.
Ooh, that's good.
Out here, you're held accountable for every arrow.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm really glad you shared all this. It's because I know it's not easy. So I've gotten to got to start to do a little self reflection. It's not always pretty. It's not always easy. So appreciate you sharing this stuff. I think it's helpful.
Yeah, there's one other group, the group that says that they what is it? So there's the must be nice group. That's what I get. And then Aaron gets the, if I could hunt as much as you, I would kill animals too. No, I used to be that guy, by the way. It's not like Aaron and I are pals. We don't talk a lot. And no, Aaron put a backpack on my own backpack on me with, how much do those javelinas weigh? 350 pounds a piece?
No, but it was probably 100 pounds, maybe.
And I can't even get my ass up, right? And Aaron's goes skipping down the hill like there's no weight on him. And he glasses better than professional guides. And what you have to do, there's nothing special about him other than the fact that he's got his 10,000 hours in. There's the book Outliers. So if you want to master something, you need 10,000 hours of not just doing it, but progressing at something. And he's got 10,000 hours in glassing. He's got 10,000 hours in backpacking. And you could I wish they would have a reality show for the next person that posts, if I could hunt that much, I could kill stuff. Just go side by side on a high country hunt and watch your spirit crush beneath the weight of that backpack, because it's not really fair to anybody. Same thing with Scotty, right? Scotty's in great shape. He can do all that stuff. It's not as easy as these guys look. They have 10,000 hours doing it, and they're definitely outliers. Got to work your way up to it.
It's been good stuff, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. This might be the last podcast before I break my leg. I'm going to go up on my roof and clean the chimney, and it's snowy and icy up there.
You get a picture of you by the chimney with that beard.
Man,
you gotta keep the beard. It takes at least 15 years off you.
Oh man,
I wrote on your Instagram, Santa? Is that you?
Yeah, I think I responded like.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I don't remember what I spun. Anyways, I got a lot of crap. I mean, you know, you got picked on about your hunting. I get picked on my physical attributes. I'm not sure what's worse.
You talking about your
I would
white
say
legs? Or
the
you
physical
still?
attributes,
You still?
I still get to go hunting.
Yeah, I said.
Instead of hunt angry, hunt ugly.
I'm nailing it. I'm killing it.
I was talking about me, but either way.
All right. Hey, again, appreciate it, guys. Appreciate your time. Right on, Cody. It's always fun having you on here.
Yep. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Cool.
All right.
You guys take it easy.
Later, guys.